Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Terry Kelm with Sunbelt Business Brokers. Thank you for joining us. We're going to just wait a couple more minutes here before we get started. We'll get started like at 1 minute after the top of the hour. So at about 2 or 3 more minutes, okay? If you are joining us for the webinar portion of the program, you should be able to see my screen on your screen. If you don't, let me know. Otherwise, like I said, we'll get going here in about 2 minutes.
And so they came and cut it down. And they hauled off a lot of the wood, and I thought,
Hey, Emily, I'm assuming you can still hear me, correct?
Yes, you're good. And
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
I've muted everybody else.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello again, this is Terry. It's straight up the top of the hour. I'm just going to wait 1 more minute, let a few of the remaining people who are trying to get in join us, and then we will start the webinar. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, my name is Terry Kelm. I'm the president of Sunbelt Resales. We've had a relationship with the HPBA now for a couple of years, and we wanted to bring you some information about maximizing the value of your business. Before we jump into the webinar itself, just a couple of housekeeping issues. This webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to request a copy of the webinar from the HPBA. Also, we're going to have everybody on mute during the time I talk here for 35 or 40 minutes. If there is a question that comes up in your mind as I'm speaking, or if there's something that we don't address in the webinar, just save it, write it down. We will unmute everybody at the end for a little Q&A. You can also use the chat feature to send that along, and we'll get all the questions at the end of the webinar. So without much further ado here, when we talk about the value, maximizing the value of the business, we do so because even if you're at a point in your business right now where you're not thinking about selling your business, you will be someday. And every business life cycle, or I should say every owner of a business has a finite life cycle. And whether you're thinking about selling your business tomorrow or 25 years from tomorrow, it's never too early to start thinking about what things you can put in place today that is going to make you have a more successful transaction and transition out of your business tomorrow or down the road. So that's kind of the thought process behind the education that we've been providing to HPBA members. Sunbelt became a partner. This webinar that we're doing today is going to be similar, but it's going to be a little bit different than the full presentation that we gave at the HPBA Expo virtually back in July of 2021. And you can see that presentation in its entirety if you're interested. And there's one of two ways you can see that. You can go to our website, sfrresales.com, and see the presentation. But also the HPBA and Diane Dellen was nice enough to include a link to that presentation in the November 2021 Hot News for HPBA members. So if you can grab that copy of the Hot News digitally, there's a link in there for that webinar. I'm going to try not to repeat all of that webinar today. I'm going to just kind of hit some highlights of some of the things we discussed in that webinar. So that's about an hour webinar. So it's a little bit more in depth. But I'm also going to present some new information today as well and some updated data. So this one will be a little bit different, but the 2021 HPBA one will be a good reference point for you to go back to as well if there's questions or other things you want to see. So at the end of the day, this webinar is focused on this number, and that is 24%. And we're going to talk about what that number means and why we are having these webinars and how we can hopefully increase that number. So, if you decide at the end of the day, when it becomes time to transition your store, that you do want to sell on the open market, one of the first decisions you're going to have to decide is how are you going to sell your business on the open market? Are you going to do a FSBO, a for sale by owner, or are you going to hire a business broker to do it? And one of the questions I get asked a lot as a business broker is, why should I hire a business broker? What do you guys bring to the table? Well, one of the things that I think is really important to understand about a broker is this. Back in 2018, the website bizbuysell.com, which is the largest business for sale website aggregator in cyberspace, saw over 10,000 deals get done that year in 2018. 2018, by the way, went down as one of the, if not the single biggest years for the number of small businesses being transacted in the open market. Okay, it was probably the busiest, most active year ever. But with the fact that they did a little over 10,000 deals, there were at that time 45,000 businesses listed for sale. So if you just take the raw math of 10,000 sold on 45,000 listed, that's about 24% of the businesses that were on the market in 2018 actually sold. And that was in the best year ever. And the unfortunate reality is the odds of your business, selling your business, are not in your favor. Most businesses don't sell. And one of the things that a business broker can do for you is increase the chance and increase your odds of sale, because it is estimated that for sale by owner businesses sell about 10% of the time, while broker sales sell between 20 to 30% on average, and good brokers sell about 50% of their inventory. So that's just probably, that's the biggest advantage to hiring a business broker, is to increase your chance of selling your business. But there's also many other opportunities to do that. As a matter of fact, there's an article, and I'll be happy to send it to anybody. It's the 62 reasons to hire a business broker. And of course, I'm not going to talk about any of those 62 reasons today, because that would be another full 3-hour webinar. But there are many reasons to consider hiring a broker. The biggest one being it increases your chance for success. The other thing about trying to sell your business on your own is running your business takes time. Most of you on this call are full-time owner operators. You're focused on your business. You have expertise in your business. Selling a business is the same way. Most of the brokers, good reputable business brokers out there, are full-time business brokers. They've practiced their craft, they've honed their craft, and they're experts in their field. So you're only going to sell your business once. Brokers do this every day, and I'm not going to ever argue the fact that you can't sell your own business. I'm sure there's people out on this call who have the ability and the capability of selling your own business. But, I think it's really important to consider, hiring experts and getting the experts involved in your transaction, especially as we navigate away from the market that we're in today, which has been a seller's market. And we're going to be shifting into, unfortunately, a buyer's market, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here as we move through the presentation today. So, whether you're selling your business now or tomorrow, whether you're going to use a business broker or you're going to do it by yourself, it is important to understand the value of your business right now, but also what's driving that value in the eyes of the buyers who are going to be looking at your business. Okay, so when it comes to valuing businesses, many different methods exist, and each methodology has pros and cons. And we're for sake of brevity, we're not going to be going through all the different ways to value a business today. But there are some common valuation methodologies that you may have heard about. There's ones based on your assets, your fixtures, your inventory, etc. There's methodologies based on gross sales, where you might hear that, hey, my business is worth 30% of my annual revenues, or my business is worth 50% of my annual revenues. There's comparison based. And this is a really common one. I get this a lot especially as I'm talking to people in similar industries, and they say, well, if I ask them what their business is worth, then they might say something like, well, I don't know what mine is worth, but I will tell you that Joe, who's got a business a lot like mine, he sold his for X. Well, unfortunately, even though you think Joe's business may be a lot like yours, Joe's business might operate in a different market. Joe's business might have a ton of different characteristics, compared to your business, as far as the amount of inventory, assets, customer base, etc. There's lots of other factors that we look at. So comparison based, has its limitations. And then there's a methodology that is based on what we call your owner benefit or your seller's discretionary earnings. And the seller's discretionary earnings methodology is one that business brokers like to use most often, or at least start with, because when a business owner has a good business and the business owner is making a good amount of money from that business, the seller's discretionary earnings methodology tends to maximize the value of your business at sale. So we tend to use that methodology first and foremost when we look at a business to see if it makes sense to value it using the seller's discretionary earnings methodology. Now, the seller's discretionary earning methodology is not based on your bottom line profits. It is a calculation of not only what you made in the business and what you reported on the tax returns or the financial P&Ls, but it also includes things such as your salary, what you paid yourself out of the business. And again, I'm not talking about if you take a draw or you take distributions out of your business, because those are not profit and loss items. Those are balance sheet items. But I'm talking about if you pay yourself a paycheck on a regular basis and get a W-2. So you're gonna, if you have a business that has profitability, you're gonna add to that your W-2 wages. You're also gonna add to that any other expense items that you paid out of the business that might be a little bit more personal in nature. I'm talking about healthcare, your automobiles, daughter's college tuition, all of the things that, that owners do. And look, there's a wide spectrum of how people run their businesses. Some are much more conservative. Some are much more, aggressive in the things they run through their business. I really don't care. What I do care is I'm trying to ascertain how much money you as an owner took out of your business from a benefit standpoint. So we're going to do a complete recast of your financials, and we're going to try to figure out exactly what your business is worth by looking at your profits, your salary, and your benefits. We're also going to add back some expenses like your non-cash expenses of amortization and depreciation. And we're also going to add back your interest expenses. All of those things added up are your seller's discretionary earnings. And once we have that number, we're going to apply a multiple to that number. Now, this is where it gets really tricky, especially as I give a presentation to the HPBA, because the HPBA has many different businesses and many different industries and many different shapes and sizes. Lots of different members and lots of different type of business action, right? So it's really difficult to give you a precise range on a call like this without knowing what industry you're actually in and what your business looks like. But I can tell you that multiples not only going to vary by your industry and not vary by your company size, but they're also going to vary by a host of other factors that we're going to talk about here in the next couple of slides. But I will give you a common, or I should say a very broad range for businesses in this sector. On the short end, it's a one-time multiple. On the high end, it's a four-time multiple. And by the way, we've seen businesses sell for more than 4 times. But typically it falls in a range between 2 and 3, but the range is as big as 1 to 4. At the end of the day, we're here as a resource. We can help you determine your multiple. In the hot newsletter that we did back in November, when we sent out that broadcast, we announced in that broadcast that we are offering for HPBA members an absolute free value range analysis. No obligation, no commitment, no cost. you send us your numbers and we will help you put a price on your business absolutely for free. But I will tell you that, as we're determining that multiple, as I mentioned, multiples are based on a lot of other factors, not just finances. Now, don't get me wrong. The financial piece really drives the bus. It's the biggest determination of what that multiple is going to look like. But the value of your business is also going to be based on things such as your assets, your inventory, your market position, and a host of other factors that we look at, that buyers look at, that they'll either group as a growth-oriented factor or a risk-oriented factor. And obviously, the more growth factors you have, the higher the multiple you can earn for your business. And the more risk factors you have, the converse is true. It's going to be leading to a lower multiple. So let's look at what some of those factors are. And again, this list here, as I mentioned in my last webinar, this list is not meant to be all inclusive, but it just kind of give you an idea of the type of things that we take into consideration when we're figuring out what the multiple for your business is. First, we look at the industry. Is it growing or declining? We look at your products. Do you have proprietary products? Is it very difficult to get in your industry, or can somebody just open up shop tomorrow? We look at your brand, your specific business. Is it growing? Is it strong? Is it good in the market share? If you own multiple stores, multiple territories that you cover, adds value to your business. We also look at your revenues and your seller's discretionary earnings that we just calculated. We want to do a 3-year look back. Is it consistently going up, or have they been kind of inconsistent, or are they going down? If they're consistently going up, I will tell you that you're going to be in a great position to maximize the value of your revenue, or to maximize the value of your business. If your business is kind of in decline, or it's inconsistent, then your business might be still sellable, but you're not going to probably maximize the value of your business. We're also going to look at your customer base. If you have a business that, you have one customer that provides, 40% of your business, that's a problem, because that is a risk. If you are selling to multiple customers every single week, and no one customer brings more than 10% of your revenue, that's the kind of business that people love. That's the kind of business banks love, to see that big customer diversity. We're also going to look at your role in the business. Okay. Buyers today, they want to buy a business where they can work on, not necessarily in. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to work their 40 to 50 hours a week, but they don't want to be the one, getting in a truck and going out and putting in a fireplace insert or doing a service call. They want to be doing the strategic stuff. They want to be doing the employee stuff. They want to be doing the stuff that, is guiding the ship as far as where the business is going to go. So if you have infrastructure, if you have a team of employees, those type of businesses are in high demand for buyers. And as I mentioned, the exact opposite is true. If you're one man in a truck, or one gal in a truck, doesn't mean your business won't sell, but it does mean that it's going to maybe be a longer process, and you're not going to be able to maximize value. So the point of this entire slide, of showing you some of these things that buyers and banks take into consideration, is this: buyers want a business with as many of those growth factors and as few risk factors as possible. So it's incumbent upon you, as you try to build your business and try to build an asset that's going to have a high probability of selling, you want to build your business so you have more of those growth factors and less of those risk factors, because that's going to help you attract more buyers. That's going to help you attract a higher price. And look, given what's going to happen in the resales market in the coming years, your ability to attract buyers for your business is going to become ultra crucial. I'm going to come back to that and talk a little bit more about the market and the changing market here in a second. But I want to take a minute and talk about COVID for a second. If you're thinking about selling your business in the next 6 months or so, COVID may still play a factor. If you're thinking about you're going to be selling your business, in 2023 beyond, COVID might not be something you have to worry about anymore, because the banks are really looking at 2020 as an anomaly, and it was an anomaly. And as I see in the fourth bullet point on the indent, the very last sentence says 2020 may actually be ignored in your in the basis of how people value your business, given that 2021 and 2022 are good bounce back years. But here's some things that we've seen over the last 18 months with COVID. You know, the market for selling your business really went through a slump in the spring of 2020, just like everything else. It came to a stop, but it's come back. It really has come back. So the market is very, very good right now to sell your business. And if you have a business in which both you saw increases in revenue and profits in both 20 and 2021, you have the most sellable and desirable business on the market right now. Buyers are craving COVID-proof businesses, and they're paying for them. As a matter of fact, the prices have been climbing for the last 18 months, and I just got the data for fourth quarter of 2021. The prices were up again 6% compared to fourth quarter 2020. And overall, the prices have been up now over 20% since spring of 2020, as far as what businesses are selling for. So we have people that are really interested in buying good businesses. And if the businesses really did well and performed well during the COVID years, we'll be able to maximize the price on them. If your business decreased in COVID, though, here's what they're looking at. They're looking at your 2021 numbers, and they're trying to see, you know, what the current run rate is. If your business is bouncing back or bounce back to pre-COVID levels, then 2020 will be ignored, and your business will be evaluated based on 2019 and 2021. However, if your business decreased and 2021 was not a strong bounce back, and your profits and sales are still down from where they were before COVID, then it's going to be a little bit different story. They're going to look at all three 2019, 2020, and 2021 numbers. And it may be in your best interest to, if you think 2022 is going to be your strongest year since 2019, to ride it out and get 2022 in the books. So it's really everything regarding how a bank is evaluating businesses right now is about the rebound. If 2021 was strong, 2020 can be ignored. If 2021 wasn't as strong, then 2020 will be part of the valuation process, okay? Also, regarding COVID, if you received a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, those things are your responsibility. And you're either going to have to get forgiveness for your PPP and or satisfy your EIDL loan either before or at the close of the sale of your business. And in order to do so, if it's an EIDL loan, your bank is going to obviously give you that EIDL loan. They have to be okay with you selling the business and paying off the loan with the proceeds of the sale. Okay, so I've mentioned the current resales market. I want to circle back to that because I think it's important. The current resales market is good. The reasons why the market is so good, well, there's lots of them. You know, unemployment has certainly came down now the last year. At its height back in mid 2020, we were at 10%. I think we're at about 5 or 6% right now, but there's still a high number of people that are unemployed. More importantly, there is a higher number of people that are gainfully employed but do not like their job anymore. There was a survey done by a national brokerage firm in the winter of 2021, December of 2021, and it carried over to early 2022. And they found, as they were surveying thousands of buyers, that 44% of all potential business buyers said they're looking at buying a business because they don't like their job anymore. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Because what happened during COVID? Well, number one, a lot of people lost their jobs, and therefore, in order for the same amount of work to get done, the remaining buyers were asked to do things that they didn't sign up for. They were asked to do more work, and they were asked to do other responsibilities. The second thing that happened was a lot of offices shut down, and people started working from home. And there are some people that really, really like working from home, and there are others that absolutely disdain it. And so for those people working at home, they are like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I got to find myself something that I can be out working with people and get away from my house at least for 8 hours a day. So those two things have led to a high number of buyers coming into the marketplace. Now those buyers are coming in, and here's what they're seeing. They're seeing still historically low interest rates. Yes, I know the Fed raised the interest rates earlier this week or late last week. And I know there's going to be some more changes to those rates as we move forward in the next year, year and a half. But even with that first increase, rates are still really low, guys. The money is still very cheap for a buyer to buy a business. And what do buyers use to leverage themselves to make a purchase like a business? Well, they use their stock market value, their portfolio. That's still at a decent level. Yeah, I know we've taken a hit from 36,000 down to 32, but now we're back to 32,700 or 34,700. The market is still at a very good number, and most people still have a lot of money in their stocks in their portfolio. They also have high home values. I can't speak for every market across the country, but I will tell you that in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities area, home values are at the highest they've ever been. So buyers are plentiful. Buyers have access to cheap money, and buyers are well leveraged. So that's why the market is so strong right now. That's why buyers are pulling the trigger, and we're seeing so many transactions get done and so many good prices being paid. So 2022, I think, is going to remain that way unless we see a full-blown recession start. And I'm hoping that 2023 is going to be good as well, unless that recession comes. And hopefully the government will do things to lessen that recession or mitigate it completely. But none of us has that crystal ball, right? We don't know how long that's going to last. So, you know, if you are in the market to sell your business in the next 18 months, I think sooner is better than later. But again, the conditions might last for even longer than that. But as I mentioned, 2018 and 2019 were really the two most active for sale years for small businesses ever. There was an article that came out right before COVID hit in January of 2020 from Bloomberg Financial, and they said that the conditions for business sellers then were, quote, as good as they will ever get. And I believe that market has carried over. Even though we had that small blip in COVID, I think the conditions right now are still, it's the best that I've seen in my 19 years in the industry. Okay. And that's great news for anybody who's thinking about going sooner than later, because we're seeing a high number of businesses sold. I talked about the highest prices. And as I mentioned, in the fourth quarter of 2021, that data just released. Prices were up again 6% from fourth quarter 2020, but the number of transactions were up 28%. From 2020 fourth quarter. Bank financing has been prevalent. The supply and demand is in harmony. It's just a good time, right? But some of you aren't ready yet, and I get that. And only you can dictate when you want to sell your business. But as you look down the road, there is a phenomenon coming that I've been talking about for many years. If you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about it, and I will continue to talk about it, even though it's really starting to manifest itself now. And that is, it's the baby boomer phenomenon. I copied and pasted these two articles from my LinkedIn feed a couple of weeks ago. These appeared on back-to-back days from back-to-back different sources. The one on the left is called The Great Acquisition. The one on the right is called The Silver Tsunami. But they both say the same thing, that the baby boomers in this country own a ton of small privately held businesses. How many? Well, it's really tough to tell. There was a 2021 survey that was released by a financial analyst company. They said that boomers own 41% of all small businesses in the US. That's a big number. I've always thought that number was probably closer to 2.5 to 3 million, but some people put it as high as 7 million businesses are owned by people who are 55 years and older right now. Okay, so what's going to happen to those businesses? Well, Bloomberg, in that same article that I referenced right before COVID back in January of 2020, in that article, they stated that they believe every baby boomer will get rid of their business between now and 2037. So in the next 17 years, we're going to see 3 to 7 million businesses go through some sort of transition. Now, some of those transitions will be, they'll give it to their kids or sell it to a relative. Some have key employees. Some will just shut down, right? They've been, they're a small business and they just don't want to even go through the hassle of trying to sell or whatever, and they'll just wind it down to nothing. But the majority of those businesses, in my opinion, are going to go to the open market. And as that happens, the market will change. It's going to shift from the seller's market that we've enjoyed really since 2015, a very long seller's market that's even gotten better here in the latter years, but it's going to go and become a buyer's market. And by the way, we've already started to see this a little bit. The wave has kind of already started. I mentioned to you back in Biz Buy Sell in 2018 that when we had that record number of businesses sold that year, that there were 45,000 businesses currently listed on Biz Buy Sell. If you go to Biz Buy Sell today, just 3.5 years later, there are 60,000 plus businesses for sale now. So the market is already starting to go toward more businesses on the market for sale. And what that means for you guys is, as you get closer to selling your business, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 12 years down the road, it's not going to be great news, because it will become a buyer's market. And when it becomes a buyer's market, the buyers then kind of control the cards, right? They can be ultra picky about the businesses that they look at, because they have other options. They'll have a lot of other options. So they're going to kind of be the ones that are going to be in control of what they look at and how they look at things. And, that's the whole point of this presentation, is you need to start planning now, even if you're not going to sell for 15 years, to help ensure that you have an asset, a sellable asset, that's going to not only attract buyers, but also attract the right price when you are ready to sell. So you can retire or sell your business on your terms at your time. And that's why we're having the webinar today, guys. That's what this presentation is all about. And really, that's a lot about what Sunbelt's alliance with the HPBA is all about. And that is helping you build a sellable business regardless of when you're ready to exit. And I will say that, if you have a business that, has a ton of growth factors in it and very few risk factors, you're going to have a huge edge in a market that's going to be dominated by buyers, right? A crowded marketplace, lots of sellers, you're going to have an edge. And, understand that, I give you guys all props for being on here today. I mean, you're hopefully going to learn a few things that is going to give you an opportunity to build your business in a way that's going to make it stand out in a crowded field. Most business owners don't have that luxury, right? Most people aren't associated with an opportunity like the HPBA that wants you to, understand the dynamics of a changing market and wants you to help you build a sellable business. So having some of this information and putting that to use, it's going to be powerful, and it can be very financially rewarding to you when you go to sell your business. So, it's never too early to begin thinking about what you want the end to look like. And I've challenged a lot of people before in my seminars on this, and I'm going to mention this again because I don't think I did it in the July 21 Expo seminar. If you haven't already started a succession plan, I think it's important that you do so. And it really starts with just a goal, and it can be a basic goal, not elaborate, right? Write down, hey, you know what? I think it would be great if I sold my business in 2029, and I'd like to sell it for $1 million. Okay. And then have us evaluate your business right now, where you're at today. And let's say that business is worth only $750,000 today. Then you have, 9 years to chart a course to build your business to your goal of $1 million resale, right? How are you going to reach those goals? So you can write down some tangible steps that you're going to take in your business to build your business so you have the asset that you want to have when it's time to retire. And if you don't do that, if you don't have those goals and just say, hey, I hope that when I'm ready to sell, it's it's worth $1 million. That's not a plan. That's a goal without a plan, and that's called a wish, right? You got to have the beacon out there. You got to have that written down target to say, this is where I'm going for. And by the way, life happens, right? Things are going to change along the line, and you may have to adjust those goals higher or lower, but that's okay. I love to tell the story of NASA and the lunar landing in 1969. NASA put that rocket down within 10 feet of their intended target on the moon. But in order to do that, did you know that they made over 10,000 different adjustments to the flight plan while en route? you can do the same thing with your business, right? So you put the beacon out there and say, here's where I want my rocket to land in X number of years at X number of dollars. And then you start doing things that you think are going to increase the value. And as life changes and things happen, you adjust the plan. But you have to have that focus. You have to have that goal to drive your business towards. I think it's imperative for every small business owner. So that way you can get your current business value to the value that you want when you're ready to exit. So preparation is the key for that, right? And again, I give you guys all props for being on this call. I hope that we're opening some eyes today on some things that you can and should be doing. Again, you know, as you get ready to exit your business, whatever that may be, whether a year from now or 20 years from now, understand there's going to be a 3-year look back. Buyers and banks are both going to look back at your most current 3 years. It's extremely important that you have good, clean, and organized financials. All right. If you don't, if you're not doing monthly P&L statements, start. If you don't do a year summary P&L statement, start. If you're not doing yearly taxes, start. And I'm hoping that everybody on this call is going, what is he talking about? Who doesn't do that? I will tell you, I had a call just on Monday of this week from a potential business seller. And when I asked to see his tax returns, his reply was, I haven't submitted my taxes since 2018. That is a no sale automatically. No broker will list it and no buyer will buy a business. You have to have good, clean, organized books. It's a make or break deal when it comes to selling your businesses. And again, buyers want businesses with as many growth factors and as few risk factors as possible. So, you know, this is really hard to do, but if you could go into your practices tomorrow and take off your owner hat and put on a buyer hat and say, I'm going to walk in this business today and I'm going to try to look at it from the viewpoint of somebody who would be looking at it like they were going to purchase it, and really dissect things and say, okay, what would I like or what wouldn't I like about this business? Try to find those growth factors and say, yes, this is a big factor for me, a growth factor, and this is going to be something I'm going to build on to help build my business. But also look for the skeletons in the closet. Look for the negative things and say, this would be a risk factor. A buyer would ding me on this, and then fix it. Right? Make it better today. Start that process. It's only going to help your business, do well better now, and it's going to help you have a more sellable businesses down the road. People always ask me, hey, how long does it take? Well, I will tell you that on average, right now, it's taken us about 7.5 months to sell a business from the date of listing to the date of close. And I will tell you that in the last few years, my quickest deal was 6 weeks. That's right, 6 weeks, all the stars aligned and we got a deal done in 6 weeks. My longest deal has been over 3 years. So the majority of the businesses are going to sell in that 6 to 9 month period. The majority of the businesses are going to sell, about 7.5 to 8 months, but some are going to take longer and some are going to go quicker. So you need to be prepared that it could be go faster, but you really need to be prepared that your business is going to take at least 6 to 9 months to sell and maybe even longer. Okay, I'm going to finish up the presentation with some do's and don'ts about selling your business. I will preface this by saying, once again, this is just time-tested advice that we stand by. This is true for whether or not you're going to sell your business tomorrow or 20 years from now, whether you're going to sell it by yourself or use a business broker. These are just strong practical advice. A lot of these were taken from the 2021 Expo presentation, so I'm not going to get into much detail on them as I did them, but I just want to hit some of the highlights on it. The first thing I want to mention is confidentiality. I hope that nobody on this call feels that you will sell your business the way you sell a house, that you're going to put a sign in your storefront and have an open house on Sunday for 2 hours and let people come and walk through your business. You have to take into consideration that you have employees, you have customers, and you have vendors. And the time to tell them that you're selling your business is certainly not the day you list your business for sale. I talked about this with a couple different case studies in that July 21 webinar recording that you can get from the Hot News or from my website. I think those 2 cases really emphasize this point, but I also want to tell you a personal story of myself on why I subscribe to the confidentiality rule. Back before I came to Sunbelt some 20 years ago, I worked for a small medical supply company in Minnesota. We were a national company. We were based here in Minneapolis, and when I came to them, they had some really good competitive advantages. They had some proprietary products. And they had, some really, really good things that the demographics were really swaying in their favor. But what they didn't have is they didn't have systems for salespeople. And so I came in and all I did was implement some rudimentary sales systems, some rudimentary sales processes. And we hit it out of the park. We had a 20% increase each of the first 2 full years that I was there. That owner then decided, wow, my business is at the top. I've got 3 really good years, strong years. I think I can maximize business or maximize my business value if I sold. So he decided to sell his business, but he made a decision because he said he felt bad. And that decision was, he called me into his office one day and said, hey, look, you've done a really good job for me and I really appreciate everything you've done. So I think I owe you this to tell you that I'm going to sell my business. Now, he sold that business 6 months later. Okay. I will tell you, every day that I woke up between that day he told me and the day he finally sold his business was a question mark. I questioned every day. Is today the day that the buyer comes in and buys the business? And if so, what happens to me? So he thought he was doing me a favor. He thought he owed it to me to tell me that he was selling his business. In fact, he put me through 6 months of hell. And he's the reason I have gray hair today. And I tell him that to his face still, because we're still friends. And I will also say to you guys, look, I was the conscientious salesperson. I stuck around, I stuck it out with him. I helped him sell his business. I didn't cut corners. I didn't stop coming to work. I didn't start stealing from him. But you run the risk when you tell your employees you're selling your business that all of those things could happen, that they leave, or worse yet, that they stay and they're apathetic. So until you sit across the table from somebody and they hand you the big fat check and you hand them the keys, it's still your business. And you're going to want your employees, your customers, and your vendors to continue to do the things they've done to help you grow your business. And the only way you can ensure that is by keeping it confidential and not telling anybody your business is up for sale. So please take that advice, keep it confidential. Don't let internal problems fester. We kind of talked about this a little bit already. As I said, if you could go into your business tomorrow and put the buyer hat on, if you see something you don't like, please fix it. And one of the most easiest things you can have impact in this area, guys, is your online presence. Don't have a website? Get one. Got bad Google reviews? Get some good ones. You got lots of people out there that have used your services in the past that I'm sure were satisfied with your business, but didn't write a review. But if you got 5 bad reviews in a row, and maybe it was over X number of years, but you don't have any good reviews to down them out, you need to get some. Okay. Stuff like that is what I'm talking about, that you have to objectively look at and say, what can we do to fix it? What can we find that buyers wouldn't like that we can change today that's going to have a positive impact on our business tomorrow? Price it right. This is another area, guys, where, look, I'd like to tell everybody on this call, I'll get you $2 million for your business. But the reality is most businesses aren't worth that. And the reality is, as we shift to a buyer's market, if a buyer doesn't see a correlation between sales, cash flow, or owner benefit and price, they're just going to move on to the next business. You're not going to be able to sell your business for more than what it's worth. It's just a fact. So you need to go out to market and have a price that has a sense of reasonableness to it. Now, we like to say we like to price our business on the high side of reasonable, but again, there has to be that reasonableness to it. Otherwise, you're not going to attract any attention. Don't be overly boastful and negative. This is something that I think sometimes buyers are shocked to learn, that sellers kill more deals than accountants and attorneys do. And they don't mean to. If you're selling your business, I'm sure you don't mean to kill your deal, but it's all in what you say and how you say it, right? I'll give you the best example I can give you. I was in a meeting one time with a buyer and seller, and the buyer asked the seller, what do you do every day? And the seller listed off all the things. And then the seller ended that statement by saying, it's a lot of stuff, and I don't know if you can do it yourself. And the buyer's like, well, I'm not going to find out. So, it's just little things like that can be a dagger to your deal. So you can never lie. You have to be honest. but there's different ways of saying different things. I'll give you another example. Maybe you work 70 hours in your business. Maybe it's a lot of work for you. You're not alone. There's a lot of owners that do that. But when somebody asks you, are you a full-time owner or operator? The answer is yes. The answer is, yeah, I work 70 hours a week. That's not the answer. The answer is, yes, I'm a full-time owner operator. Okay. Different ways of saying the same thing. You got to be cognizant of it as you're talking to buyers. Understand financing options. We didn't touch about this at all today, and I'll be happy to go over this with anybody on a personal call. But bank financing is prevalent right now. It's great. Most owners are being able to get cashed out. However, some aren't. And sometimes, in many cases, it's more advantageous for you to consider doing seller financing. It can mean more money in your pocket, and it can mean the difference between getting a deal done or not getting a deal done. And like I said, I won't spend a lot of time with that today, but it's something that I would be happy to talk about. And maybe we can either do another session just on financing options and what seller financing is down the road. Be available to help train and transition the new owner. I will tell you that the day you sell your business will not be the last day you work in the business. Most of the time, that transition period is 30 days. Sometimes it's a little quicker. Sometimes it's longer. I had a recent one where the buyer requested the owner stick around for 3 years to help them. The buyer just felt that they needed that expertise around. So just because you're selling doesn't mean it might be the last day of the work, but typically it's a 30-day transition time. Sprint to the finish. I did go through both of these cases again on the July 21 webinar, but I'm going to hit the highlights of it. Basically, this was the story of two different businesses. The first one, the Ace Hardware business, when that gentleman decided to sell his business, he stopped working. He thought, you know what, I'm going to be out of here in 6 months, and I don't have to do the little things that made me so successful anymore. Unfortunately, 6 months in, we hadn't sold it yet, and his interim financials looked terrible, and it got to the point where we actually couldn't sell his business. So he basically, even though he didn't want to, he killed his own deal and he wound his business down to nothing. The home healthcare company in Michigan did the exact opposite. He listed his business in June of 1 year. We thought we had the right buyer right away. That deal fell through in December. At the end of December, he showed us his financials. He kept on the gas pedal the whole time, even though he thought the business was going to be sold to this particular buyer. And he showed another year of growth of both owner benefit as well as revenues. We put the business back on the market at a higher price, and we sold it 3 months later. So again, until you sit across the table from someone and they give you that check and you toss them the keys, whose business is it? It's yours, and you need to sprint to the very last day where you're not the owner. Sell when business is good. Like I said, your business is a stock, right? You want to sell when it's at a high point. I hope that when you do your chart, and say I want to sell in 2029, that your business is doing really well then, because you're going to maximize value. You want to gear toward having that business at the apex, at the highest point ever. That's how you're going to maximize value. And the last thing I'm going to say to you guys is, look, if you do it right, this is a process that you're only going to go through once in your life. You're only going to sell your business once. And yep, there are people out there that sell their businesses, without the help of business brokers, accountants, tax attorneys, lawyers, etc. But I will tell you that while, if you hire these people to help you do it, you're going to have to write checks to them. It's going to cost you some money. If they do their job well, it should leave you more money net in your pocket than if you didn't use them in the transaction. That's what good professionals should do. They should help you save enough money or earn enough money in the sale where they're going to pay for their own services. I'm biased. Obviously, I'm one of these professionals, but I'm hoping that you would at least consider having discussions with professionals before you go to sell your business on your own. So that's the bulk of the presentation. I just want to say one more thing about Sunbelt. Again, my role with the company, I'm not a business broker. My role is to create the relationships with organizations like the HPBA, and I'm here as a resource for you guys. So you're going to see my contact information up on the screen here as we end the presentation. Diane has my contact information as well. If you talk to her, But at the end of the day, if you have any kind of questions, concerns, you're just starting the process, you want to put your toe in the water, you just want to know more than you know today, you have my contact information, and reach out to me, and I'll be glad to spend as much time with you as you need, and it won't cost you anything. If you're looking to sell your business, we have basically 3 offerings for you. We have the traditional broker, just as our bread and butter. We have 140 offices across North America. We're the largest business broker in the world. We can list and sell your business for you. We do all the heavy lifting when you list us on the traditional brokerage. We do all the advertising, all the buyer work, and do everything to get you to the closing table. But if you have a buyer that maybe you're going to sell to your kid or a key employee, and you just need somebody to help you dot the I's or cross the T's, we have a consulting option for that. It's a lot less expensive than traditional listing, and we'll still give you some expertise and advice on how to get a deal done. We also have valuation services. I've already mentioned to you that we offer a free value range analysis where we'll give you an approximate range for your business. But let's say you're going to sell to your kid, and all you need is a concrete price for the business. We'll do a valuation called the broker estimate of price for a very reasonable fee. It's under $1,000. So lots of different ways we can help you. We can also help you, by the way, if you're not in sale mode yet. Let's say your target date is 15 years away and you'd like to grow, and maybe you'd like to grow through acquisition. We have acquisition services too, or we can help you find another business to purchase, and acquire their human capital, maybe their location, their physical assets, etc. So if that's something you're looking at, we can also talk about that. So lots of different ways we can help you. Again, we're here as a resource. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for being on the call, and we'll move back over and see if there was any questions in the chat. Otherwise, I'll have Emily unmute you, and we'll see if we have anybody who wants to say a message or ask a verbal message.
Thank you, Terry. This is Emily. Just wanted to let everybody know, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, and Terry can see those and answer those. Otherwise, it sounds like he'd be happy to talk with you privately and at a later time. In addition, we are recording this, and we will be posting this on the website. Probably it will be up early next week. But if you'd like to see a recording of that, and Terry, I'm assuming we can also share the slideshow as well.
Absolutely. I'll
make that available.
Send that to Diane, and she can give it out.
Absolutely. And we'll make that available to all the attendees next week. And again, you can reach out to Terry directly for questions, or if you have any last quick questions, you can put them in the chat right now.
Okay.
And it sounds
I'm
like
asked to share the contact information again, so I'm going to go back and do that real quick, if that's all right.
Sure.
Hopefully everybody can see that. Next question was, I'd like to see your presentation from 2021. So two places where you can see that, and I'll go back on the slide right now with that to show it to you. Bear with me here. The first one was Diane was nice enough to share that presentation with you all on the hot news in November of 2021. There was a link to that in the hot news. So if you have that digital copy of hot news from November 2021, it's in there. Otherwise, if you'll notice in green on this slide, there is my personal website is sfrresales.com. We have that same webinar from July 2021 from the HPBA Expo posted there on that website. So either way works, either in the hot news of 2021 November or on my website. So the next question is rough valuation 3 years gross sales or 3 years gross profit? Well, it's the answer to that question is a little bit different than the way you pose it. So I want to make sure I understand the question. There is going to be a 3-year look back of your business by buyers and banks, and they're going to be looking at the entire financial package of your business, both 3 years of sales as well as your 3 years of what we call owner benefit, what we calculated as owner benefit. That's what they're going to be looking at. Okay. There are formulas out there that say that businesses in your particular industry sell for X number of points or percentages of your gross sales and of gross profits. And some of those are over time have proven to be right. But here's the problem with any methodology that uses gross sales or gross profits as, especially gross sales as the baseline. Let's say that Emily has a business that's doing 700,000 in sales, and I have a business that's doing 700,000 in sales. Under the gross profit or gross sales methodology, they would be worth the same amount of money because they have the same gross sales. But if Emily was making $200,000 in her business and I'm making $50,000 in my business, which business do you think is worth more? Which business would a buyer pay more for? They'd pay more for Emily's because the profit's higher. That's what gross sales methodologies don't tell you. They don't tell you how well the business is being run. So that's my issue with gross sales methodologies. I don't like gross sales methodologies just because they don't tell the whole story of the business. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question. If you have something else you want me to answer on that, I can. Let's see. So this question says, the electrification of California is looming over our industry. How will that affect the value of my business? Well, it's obviously something that you're aware of, and it's obviously something that, depending on how far the government goes, it could have a dramatic effect of your business. At some point in question, it becomes, what does the buyer think? What does the bank think, right? Is the business long-term sustainable? One of the reasons that we do the cash flow analysis over a 3-year period is because that shows sustainability. If you have consistent or rising revenues in the last 3 years, that shows that it can be maintained, that it can sustain. So sustainability is important. And if a buyer or a bank looks at any particular industry and says that industry is not sustainable, it's going to be very difficult to sell the business. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm hoping that it's a long-term time or a long time coming before we get to that point with any of the industries that we're in. But again, I don't live in California, so I really can't say how close or how close on the horizon that may be. But to answer your question, just in the general situation, yes, it's your business has got to be sustainable, otherwise it's not going to be sellable. Question is, who do we contact if you're ready to sell? That would be myself. Start with me. I will do some preliminary work with you, either me or my team. I have a team of people that I work with at my office. So one of us will answer the phone. We'll work with you. And then once we're ready to introduce you to an actual broker in our network, we'll make that introduction for you. So we'll walk you right down that path. Emily and Diane, I think we have all the chat questions answered. Is there anything else that we wanted to cover today?
I think that we are all set, and we really appreciate you doing this, Terry. And I think that everybody probably found this very helpful. And like I said a little earlier, we'll distribute the slides, and we'll also make sure we distribute these links, both for contact information and for that past presentation, to everybody who was on the call today. Otherwise, thank you all for attending, and thank you, Terry.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.